Hi everyone, Hope King here from Elementary Shenanigans, and today I just want to spend a couple of minutes explaining how I use Jenga to engage my learners. Specifically today we're going to be talking about giant Jenga and how I use this in my classroom. So let's go ahead and begin. Before I even talk about how I set this game up, one thing I do want to mention is that as teachers, we have to be really careful whenever we're incorporating games into our classrooms. For example, whenever I would play Jeopardy with my students, I would put them into groups of 5 or 6, and I would give them a whiteboard and I would tell them, think of the answer together and collaborate, and then let's talk about what you came up with. Well, we all know as teachers what actually happened during that time. One student, the smartest student in the class or the smartest student in that skill, they were answering all the questions while the other students were having 20 or 30 minutes just to sit there and enjoy life, to kind of sit back, relax, and watch things happen. So we definitely do not want that to occur with our students. So we have to be very careful that we arrange games and create them in such a way that no student ever has time or a chance to become invisible. So when I talk about Jenga today, you're going to see how I created this game and I really thought it through before I played it with my kids, to make sure that every single student is accountable for their learning and for what they're practicing at every single point in the game. We know as teachers, we don't have time to waste, and we definitely don't have 20 minutes to waste, so we've got to make sure that games have a purpose, that they have a meaning, but also that every single student is accountable for what they're learning. So let's go ahead and begin with how I created this game. So I've seen Jenga used a lot in different classrooms, and I've seen different teachers use it in different ways. Okay, so I saw where some teachers numbered them, some teachers wrote the equations on the blocks, but for me, I was thinking, if every time I want to play Jenga, I have to write on the blocks or I have to put pieces of tape and write equations or problems, I'm probably not going to play this very often in my class. And I wanted this to be a really great game that I could just pull out. It incorporates movement, it gets my kids up, but it also helps them practice skills that we're working on in class. So I thought of a little bit different strategy. Here's what I did. I took my giant Jenga set, which I got from Splinter Woodworking. They're an Etsy shop, and they were so wonderful about helping me out with this. You could also build this if you're a really skilled carpenter. However, I am not that. So I had Splinter Woodworking create this for me, and they actually make these, so you can purchase them from Splinter Woodworking. But when I got it, I said, I've got to think of a way to kind of separate these blocks so that they actually mean something. So that's exactly what I did. I divided my blocks into 9 colors. So let me actually take a little block down so you can see what this looks like. And I just took acrylic paint and I painted the edges. Oh, let me get this in the center for you. I painted the edges of the blocks a specific color. I painted them 9 different colors. Again, I just used acrylic paint. You can see my lines aren't even perfect, but that's not what matters. I didn't have time to paint the whole block. I just painted the very edge in 9 different colors. Now let me talk about what those 9 different colors mean. Let me put this back up here so that when we play, it's ready to go. So each color correlates to a specific question. So if you look here at this worksheet, I have divided, it's just simple math equations, but I have divided them up into 9 groups. So here's what happens. Say a student wants to move this pink block right here. This is the piece that they actually want to move for the game. Before they can move this block, they have to look on that sheet and they have to find the first question under the pink section. Then, here's what happens. Here's the beauty of this. Every single person in that group has to answer that specific question. So they're working quietly, they're answering the equation, or they're editing the sentence, or whatever it may happen to be as far as your content. Every single person has to answer that question before this block right here is moved. Then, once they all have their answers, the person that's wanting to move that pink block states their answer, and if the whole group thinks that they got that answer correct, then they would actually get to move the block out and place it on, oh, I'm scared this is going to fall on me, and place it on the top of the Jenga set so that they're working together to build this tower as high as they can get it. So it's a very simple concept. The colors actually have meanings. They correlate to questions. But here's what that does. It helps questions not to repeat themselves, because if they actually want to move another pink block, then they would have to answer question number 2 under the pink section before they could move that block up to the top. Again, every single student has to answer that question and agree with the person that's trying to move this block. They have to agree that they got the answer correct in order for that person to be able to move the block. So it's a pretty easy concept, a pretty easy game, but it also makes sure that every student in that group is working together. They're all answering the questions, nobody is invisible, and they all have to agree that the student that wants to move the block got that specific question right before they move on. This is a great way to differentiate questions. This is a great way to include different concepts within one game. But again, it's very rigorous, it has students working towards a common goal, it keeps them accountable, and it's definitely not a waste of your time. So that's all it is. Super easy to create, super easy to change, because when you want to play it for a different skill, you just update that sheet and you make sure that it has different questions for different colors, and every single group gets the same exact sheet and they're all working together. I also did this with smaller versions, so I actually have 4 of these larger games and then I have 12 of the smaller Jenga sets, and this is going to actually be kind of an incentive where students work to get to play the giant Jenga game. So, like I said, easy to do, easy to manage, easy to differentiate, easy to update and add different questions, but a lot of fun, a lot of movement, a lot of activity, and it's definitely a student favorite. So, I hope you enjoyed this little, tutorial about how to play Jenga in your classroom. You can make sure that you leave me questions below in this blog post if you have questions about the Jenga, and I'll be happy to answer those or add those answers to this post to make sure that I answer all of your questions. But thank you for joining me, and I'll be back later with some more games. Bye, everybody!